Welcome to the 4 Habits podcast, where we help you build relationships that thrive at home, at work, and in life. We're Dr. Andrea and John Taylor-Cummings, and every week we bring you actionable insights to create meaningful connections and lasting success. So let's dive in.
The ability to have honest conversations, especially when tensions are running high, emotions are running high, there's tension, there's conflict in the workplace. How do we say the things that need to be said in a way that's caring and that strengthens relationships rather than damages them? Well, we're delighted to have in the studio with us here Dr. Jen Fry, author of the book, I Said No, How to Have a Backbone and Boundaries Without Being a Jerk. So we are so looking forward to that conversation. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
Really looking forward to it. But before we do, as our audience knows, we need to share the bio.
Let me do that bit. Always love this. All right. So Dr. Jen Fry is a conflict literacy expert with a passion for helping people do relationships better when it matters most, especially in moments of tension, discomfort, and disagreement. As the founder of Jen Fry Talks, Jen leads organizational change work at the intersection of conflict and culture. Her work helps leaders and teams stop avoiding hard conversations and start using them as a tool for connection, clarity, and growth. With a PhD in sports geography, Jen's career has spanned coaching elite athletes, speaking on global stages, and consulting across industries. Her approach is grounded, practical, and direct, focused on helping people understand their triggers, navigate difference, and communicate with greater confidence and care. Whether working with individuals or organizations, Jen brings clarity to the complexity of conflict and offers frameworks that build both resilience and trust in relationships. There's a whole lot that we want to jump into.
So many things to dive into just right there.
But I think maybe we should even start with the book. What led you to the book and the title, and tell us a bit more about that.
Oh, so it's fascinating because, one of the things as being a speaker is that they say you have to have a book. If you want to get on to bigger stages, you have to have a book.
Mm-hmm.
And if you unless you're a celebrity or you have a disability with some intense story, right? Like I lost my arm to sharks while windsurfing, like stuff like that, right? But like you need a book to get on bigger stages. Yeah. And then for me, it's funny, when I was writing my dissertation, everyone kept saying, like, when are you having a book come out? And I'm like, I gotta finish this PhD before I even think about the book. And so then as more people asked me, and kind of tying in with being on stage, I said, these are stories and things that people need to think about or want to talk about. And so really the book came from that. And at first, the title was actually named Kind Asshole, because that's how I consider myself. I don't consider myself nice. I try and be really kind, but sometimes it comes out. And so I was in a book academy course by Lovey Jones, and she says, you don't have the following to cuss, right? Like this person who has the F word in it, he has 4 million people. He's fine. You're not. And so then I started to kind of really rethink the title. And that's where the idea of I Said No came out. Because a lot of times people have big difficulties in just saying the words to people. They will do whatever it takes, and include hurting themselves, just so that they don't have to say no. Yeah. And so that's why I have that in there about doing this without feeling like you're a jerk. Because what people tend to tie is you saying no to you being a bad person and making you feel bad. And then people don't do it. And so how do we disconnect that and say, like, you can say no and set boundaries and still be thought of as a kind human?
Yes, amazing. And I love that description of working in the intersection of culture and conflict, because one of the things we've always said is the way you deal with conflict will give people cues as to how safe they are to make a mistake, to get something wrong, to engage if they disagree, and that sets the culture. What are the kind of principles, key principles that you want all of us to understand about conflict and having those honest, hard conversations?
Well, you said it correctly. If I can't feel safe to make a mistake around you, I'm not going to make a mistake. Or if I do make a mistake, I'm going to try so badly to hide it that potentially it makes it worse. And that's what people don't understand, is that I'd say one of the first principles is that people have to feel safe in your reaction.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not
Wow.
that you don't get a reaction, but people, if you want people to innovate, if you want to have a true culture, people have to feel safe in their mistakes, in your response. And so if I make a mistake and every time my boss yells and screams and cusses or whatever it is, then I'm not going to feel safe to make a mistake. If when I make a mistake, I get blown up in email by
Mhm.
everyone, I'm not going to make a mistake. Now, that doesn't mean that people don't get to emote. And I
Mhm.
think that we need to separate that. If you're giving me bad news, I get to be upset, frustrated, disappointed.
Yep.
I get to have emotions. And I think some people put those two together. But like people deserve to emote. And so that to me, I think is a big thing, is that the reaction that occurs can tell a person if I can be honest or if I can't be honest. And I try and really, when mistakes are made, I really try and have that thought process. I try and think about it because I know that even once we get over the hump of the mistake, that reaction is going to be in people's minds.
Indeed.
And
Yeah.
so I have to be thoughtful about it. Is after we get over this hump, how do I want our relationship to be and how do I want them to think about me? And so I will get mad, I'll get frustrated, but I'm not going to cuss someone out. I'm not like those things. I try and be very, very thoughtful of. And I think some people have the idea of because a mistake was made, they get to act however they want to get to act,
Mhm.
that they
Mhm.
deserve it. And that's just fundamentally not true, especially when you're a leader. You don't get to do that. To me, leaders, coaches, they have to be the most emotionally regulated people, right?
Indeed.
Because
Yeah.
you are like you're the top of the pyramid. And what you tend to see, and why I say the intersection of conflict and culture, is that we will see people with the taglines of like positive culture, loving each other, blah blah blah, and then a mistake is made, and it could be a basic mistake, and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And so that's I tell people is like how you manage conflict is your culture. A direct
Indeed.
correlation.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
We're
full
so on
stop.
that page. Yeah.
And does that, have you seen a difference between the different spaces that you've worked in, whether it's sports or education or tech or
New corporate world.
in the corporate world? Do the same principles apply in each of those, or are they exceptions that you can make? Well, you're in the world of sports; it's more normal to have some of that bad behavior there, or I don't know. What's your experience there
Well, I
across the
think
different
the
spaces?
problem is that sport allows the bad behavior to happen,
Mhm.
right? It kind of forces itself to be the exception to the rule. Think about how many really explosive coaches there have been in the past
Mhm.
towards players,
Mm.
and the exception to the rule. The one that always comes to mind is Bobby Knight. Bobby Knight coached at Indiana. He was on video choking a player and still got to
Wow,
coach.
wow.
Like
Oh
there is,
wow.
and when he did this, it had to have been 80s or 90s,
Mm.
and and coaches record every practice, so there is actual footage of him choking this athlete,
Mm.
and he still had a job. He still got to coach.
Yeah.
There are examples of coaches grabbing and doing all these things, and they still get to coach because it's like, well, it was the passion of the moment.
Mm.
Tensions were flying, and then they excuse them. And to me, coaches have to be the most emotionally regulated because you are leading these people through really hard times. And because you're leading people through times, they're looking to you to see how you manage it. So when I was a coach, I coached in the 2011 volleyball national championship. And it's wild to think it's going to be almost 15 years.
Mm.
But when we should have won that. And we're losing. And then volleyball, we play out 5 sets. The first 4 go to 25. The fifth one goes to 15. And we come to the 4th set, and we've lost all gas. And my head coach, who's now the head coach at Stanford, how he managed the staff, the athletes, exemplified emotional regulation. It wasn't screaming, it wasn't shutting down. It was still managing the humans during the moment. And I
Mhm.
think people who are leading and are feeling all these emotions forget you're still leading people in the moment. Your company's
Mhm.
getting
Mhm.
acquired. you have to fire people, whatever it is, you're still leading humans in the moment.
In the moment.
And I think people tend to forget about that and think that the justification is what's occurring. And that to me is just simply not true. It shouldn't be that, you've worked in my building for 20 years. And because we're going through this hard moment, I just get to fire you in a one sentence email.
Mhm.
And that's just like, you're still leading humans. And
Yeah.
to me, that part is forgotten about in the hard moment, because people don't like, I think about like, okay, what are these hard moments I might be in, and how do I still regain or engage my composure and humanity? And I think sometimes people allow the moment to take away their humanity in how they're
Mhm.
interacting with people.
I'm just writing down some brilliant lines that you're saying, as we go. Don't allow the moment to take away your humanity. People have to feel safe in your reactions or in your response. These are
Yeah.
just such golden nuggets. So when you work with a team, say, I don't know, what's the context that they bring you into, and what are the steps or the frameworks that you take them through to get better at
And
creating this space?
handling the moments.
Yeah.
Well, I think the first problem that tends to happen is that people want to bring me in after the crap has hit the fan.
Mm.
Mhm.
And now people are almost pointing fingers at the person or the thing that caused me to be brought in.
Mhm.
And that's a hard thing now to deal with, because everyone has a protective layer on,
Hmm.
versus people understanding that conflict is a normal part of work, play, life, love. And we have to start preparing people with skills.
Hmm.
And that is the better time, because people aren't sitting here saying, was it my fault? Was it their fault? Whatever it is, trying to, on Slack or text message, trying to figure it out. But there's more of an openness to say, we understand that this is a natural part of working with other humans.
Mm.
And so that's the biggest part, is people will bring me in of like, hey, we just have to start preparing our teams or staffs to manage this. Because if you think about when many consultants are brought in, it's leadership, positivity, motivation, right? It's like that stuff. Or they're coming in as the cleanup crew,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? They're coming
Mhm.
in, something has hit the fan, they're coming in. Versus we are having Jen come in just to develop skills. And a part of that skill development I come in is that we have to understand our relationship to conflict and why we view conflict the way we do.
Hmm.
That's the very first part. I know a lot of people start with organizational assessments, right? They're like, okay, let's do an assessment on how you navigate conflict. Like, let's do all these.
Mhm.
Most people can tell you they know how they navigate conflict, right?
Yeah.
They will say, I'm avoidant.
Mhm.
I get
Mhm.
really emotional. I'm explosive. Like, they will tell you that. They know this.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that many people don't start to pull back the layers, and in some spaces the scabs of how they started developing this relationship to conflict, because
Mm.
it's scabs. You have to be willing to unearth some stuff to really get to the nuts and bolts of it, because you can't say I'm conflict avoidant without peeling back layers as to why you are that way.
Yeah.
You can't. And so
Yeah.
that's the thing about it, is that we have to understand who we are and how we got to be who we are in order for changes to be made. And it's ugly and it's painful. And many times when I go and speak, people will say, well, we should be invoicing you for therapy. Because now you start to really break down the relationships you have and how you've learned to navigate them, how you've learned to navigate your relationship with your parents, how you've learned to navigate relationships with your siblings, how you've learned to pay attention to the relationship with your mom and her mom,
Mm.
Yeah.
right? And what goes on with that. And then in saying, I see the relationship with my mom and her mom and how that has affected my relationship with my grandma and me.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to peel back the layers, because how you interact at home is probably how you're going to interact in the office. The only caveat I would have is sometimes there's a difference when power is included. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is
Mhm.
sometimes people don't have power in the home, but they
Yeah.
have power in the office, and they
Mhm.
wield that power like a weapon because it's the only time they actually have power and control.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that desperation for power and control will drive the way you turn up
Yep.
without thinking about. We like to ask the question, what's it like being on the other side of you?
Yes. 100%.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're so on the same page in terms of conflict itself not being the issue, but how you handle the conflict it's all
Yeah.
about that. I mean, I think from what you were saying just now, conflict really can be a mirror, but it's a mirror that a lot of people don't want to take a look at because they don't want to see what
Yeah.
comes back at it. What comes back can be pretty ugly. If conflict is that
Well,
mirror
can
of
I can I
go on.
add to that? Also, it's a mirror, and when it's truly pulled back, it might cause them to reassess relationships.
Hmm.
Mm.
So I knew someone who how his brother treated him was horrible. In conflict was like horrible.
Mm.
And I would say things to him about it. And the way I feel is that if he had the honest conversation with his brother, the reality is his brother might not change.
Mhm.
And he now has to reassess that relationship.
Mm.
Because if I am now acknowledging that the way you treat me is not going to change, I potentially have to reassess that relationship.
Indeed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have to reassess every aspect. And so some people will ignore that mirror because they don't want to have to go through the depth and the pain and the heartache of reassessing that this person is not willing to change how horribly they they treat me, and I might have to be okay with it. And am I okay with it? And
Mm.
what does that mean for our relationship?
Indeed. Indeed. That could be a scary place if it means having to confront
Yes.
putting distance into the relationship.
Yes.
Yeah. I hear that loud and clear.
It's I mean fascinating you say that. I was having a conversation with a guy just yesterday actually, and he was saying that there were two brothers and they work in business together, and I guess they've kind of grown up knowing each other and how they get on. And he says
Yeah.
sometimes when the pressure is on, they can be pretty obnoxious with each other,
Mhm.
but actually they've learned that actually there's nothing deep about that. So people looking on may go, "Whoa, these guys are dysfunctional here," but they just know that that's how they get on, and
Mhm.
they'll then step away from that situation and go for lunch together and be completely fine.
Yeah.
But they've learned to process it. Doesn't mean they've necessarily addressed it, but in the moment they do that. Um, just interesting when you said that, and maybe there is some conversations that they need to have with each other, especially if they both feel it's fine, then okay. But
Yeah,
if one of them
exactly.
feels this isn't quite right, but I'll put it behind me, and we can now go and have lunch together.
Yep.
That's a whole different thing.
I in a way that I have no choice but to go on the ride with this,
Yeah.
right? Like I have to take it. And so I mean, it's important to have those and they're hard and they're ugly. None of
Mm.
this is simple. None of it is simple. And it doesn't mean we don't do it.
But
Yeah.
well, that's exactly where I wanted to go. Going back to the title of the book, How to Say No. I said no, how to have backbone and boundaries
Without being
without
a jerk.
without being a jerk. So how do you do that? This is the golden nugget that everybody wants to understand. How can I actually speak up for myself in the moment? Because people are afraid of how their emotions might, sabotage what they really want to say, or how the other person's emotions might sabotage what they really want to say. So it's easier to not go there
Or how the
sometimes.
other person's going to react to what I
Yeah,
said.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
how do you have backbone and boundaries?
Well, I think the first thing is understand that the person, they deserve to get to react. Like
Mhm.
people get to emote. We are
Yeah.
so painfully afraid of people emoting. If people
Mhm.
deserve to emote. If I'm telling you bad news,
Mhm. Mhm.
you deserve to have emotions. Who am
Yeah.
I to be like, I'm telling you this really horrible thing, but you don't get to have emotion. You have to sit there
Yeah.
like a statue. That's unfair. And so I
Yeah.
think that's the first thing, is that knowing that in some of these conversations, there is going to be emotion. People
Yeah.
are going to be hurt, mad, pissed, frustrated, whatever it is. They get to have those. So I think that's the very first thing, is to be able to understand that when I have conversations, people are going to emote, and I have to be okay with that. Now, it doesn't mean that they get to cuss me out, grab me, right? It doesn't mean they'll get to do those things, but they get to emote.
Mhm.
If they're sitting there crying, let them cry.
Mhm.
Like, what's the harm in allowing people to go through their emotions? If you're firing someone and they're going to cry, they're going to cry.
Mm.
So I think that's the very first thing. I think the second thing is time, meaning the closer it is to the thing, the more of a jerk you're going to be.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, for instance, an example, I have a friend who was having a 40th birthday celebration, and I just couldn't make it. Me, I would have been a jerk if I told her I couldn't make it a week before.
Mhm.
We've been making plans. I've been like, yeah. And a week before, I can't go. I've been knowing for months I can't go.
Mhm.
There's a difference if an emergency pops up of like,
Sure.
hey, I can't go because, right, whatever emergency. But many times you know you can't go. Financially, timing, whatever it is. And you just play along because you don't want to hurt their feelings. And
Mhm.
now, like, it's about to be a few days before, and now you say you can't go. Well, now you're a big jerk because time, maybe they have to put more money towards it. Everyone's budget $500, and without you there, now it's $1,000.
Mm.
Maybe it's that we all had 2 in a room, and now the person that's rooming with you, now they have to pay the whole room, and there's
Mm.
no way to move. Like, right? There's so many logistical things that are occurring. That's why you're a jerk versus it's 2 months out and you're like, I can't make it. And so
Yeah.
I had this situation where I was like, and I was trying to wait. And I was like, okay, I don't want it to get too late. So it was probably about 2 months out. And I said, unfortunately, I can't go. And I said, I know
Mm.
you're going to be frustrated and mad at me. I know this. And I have to take it.
Mm.
I have to take it. And she was. And I know it hurt her. And I said, whenever you're feeling better, let's talk about it. But I get you're upset, mad, frustrated. And so the door was open to the conversation.
Mm.
And I let her have her emotions. I let her be frustrated, but I wanted it to be honest and give them time to fix it.
Mm.
And it was probably like, I don't know, maybe a week before. And she called me and she was like, I'm not mad at you. You're not coming. But I was really excited that you're going to be sharing in this experience.
Mm.
And we were able to have an honest conversation of like, I know, girl, I wanted to go too. I get it.
Mm.
And I just couldn't. And so you're able to have a much more honest conversation when you give time versus you waiting so long to give the information that
Mm.
you know is coming down the pipeline.
And it's a really powerful example, actually, because I think there's a world in which the person who is not is unlikely to turn up at the event doesn't feel they're being a jerk, because they might just be living in hope, thinking, actually, you know what, maybe there's a world in which I can get the finances together and I can make it happen.
Mhm.
But I think if you could only be upfront and just say, actually, you know what, the finances aren't in place yet. Maybe there's a world in which I'm not going to be there. I'm going to try and get there, but just so you know, there's a chance that I may not be there. And if you can do that upfront enough, and not just be over optimistic, or maybe I can
But
make it happen. But that's being a
no,
jerk without
not.
realizing it.
But even the language you're giving is giving hope. Don't give
Mm.
hope.
Right.
Because you saying, well, there's a chance, there's maybe. No, I can't come.
Okay. All right.
Because when you start to give hope to people, it opens the door. And then what might happen is they
Okay.
might say, well, let me hold off on putting 3 people in the room because you might still come.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then guess what happens? It's in 2 months, and every single week I'm like, hey, do you think you can make it? I know you said
Yeah.
there's a chance. Do you think you can
Yeah.
make it? Do you think you can make it? So now every time I talk to you, I'm asking if there's a chance you can make it.
Yeah. And that
So
just adds
now
the stress.
it adds the stress because now I don't want to talk to you because you're going to keep freaking asking me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I know, right? I know I can't make it versus
Yeah.
me saying I can't come.
Yeah.
And then maybe a week before something that happens, I'm like, hey, I'm able to come. But don't give hope, because
Yeah.
what you're doing right there is you're trying to give hope.
Yeah,
Don't
it's
give
false
hope.
hope. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's false
Don't
hope.
give
You
don't
are
give
being a
false
jerk
hope.
without realizing it.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't give false hope.
Yeah.
That's the thing I've realized, like with kids. if you do that, they will cling to the 0.0001%
Mm-hmm.
That
and
would be
ride
me.
ride it till the wheels fall off. Don't give hope. We
Yeah.
cannot go. We cannot
Yeah.
do this. We
I love
cannot
it.
afford it. Be
Yeah.
honest, because that's a part, is that people think in giving the hope, you're being kind, and you're not. You're just being a jerk. And
Yeah.
so thinking about, time, think about this with jobs. You know you're not going to be able to afford this in 5 months, and you don't tell them, give them the opportunity, hey, to ride with me, or this is what it's looking like. And so that's a part of being honest that people are afraid to do. So they'll do everything other than doing that. And you'll
Yeah.
be surprised at what happens when you're honest with other folks and give them the opportunity.
I think what you said earlier, the hesitation about being honest because we worry about people having emotions.
Mhm.
That's the thing that stops us going there, because they're going to have
Mhm.
emotions and we don't know how to handle it, or we're going to feel bad if they do, or they might be explosive and then we're uncomfortable with that. It's all those things that would cause us to push the conversation under the rug and just not have it
Mhm.
until we're absolutely forced to. So really good points there. Know that people will emote, let them. Think about the time. Don't wait till it's too close to the event. You're going to be more of a jerk then. What else?
Yeah, I
What?
mean, I think that it's okay when people are emoting to name your boundary of how you're being treated, right?
Right.
It's okay. Like, I understand you're frustrated at me, but do not cuss at me. This
Yeah.
conversation will end if you're going to cuss.
Mm-hmm.
I understand you're upset, but this conversation will end if da da da.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important. Also, in the moment, to be able to name when you're feeling too much.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like my
Mm-hmm.
chief of staff and I will do that. It'll be like, right now, I'm really upset. We'll talk. We'll talk in a few. And either one of us will get off the phone. And we have a comfort of knowing that, one, we're going to come back to the conversation, and two, that's not it.
Yeah.
Right? So if she gets off the phone, I'm not sitting here like, oh my God, we're going to talk about what's going to happen. I'm like, okay, I know we'll talk about it in a week, or not a week, in like maybe a few hours, maybe the next day. Like, I know we will. There's a calmness and there's a security there. Because what tends to happen and what causes people to be frantic is saying, well, right now I'm just too frustrated. We'll talk. And then they don't know if the talk will ever happen.
Yeah, no.
And then that causes people to be frantic and anxious. Versus, like, we know we're going to talk. It's just a matter of when.
When, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so giving that like ability to make the call, to be able to have the continued conversation. And that's what we'll do. We're not going to talk again without us talking about the thing. Like, that just won't happen.
Yeah.
We're not going to have the thing hovering above us like a cloud. We're going to talk about it.
I was going to ask to just continue on that, because one of the things that our listeners will feel challenged by is if it's in a situation where they're being bullied. So, the way that your boss is screaming at you, shouting at you, or the way that they're being treated by others, where there's this power dynamic as well. How do they set the boundary to say, I can see this is really important. I can see that I messed up there, but we can't talk about it like this. Let's take a breath. Or, how do they have the backbone and put the boundaries in cases where there's this power difference and the other person who's more powerful is being explosive?
Well, I think that they say that. Well, a lot of people will say, in my response of like, say that is, well, I'm worried about my job. And I get that.
Yeah.
And you have to determine if your worry about your job is worth being treated like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to make the decision. And that's a really important thing to think about, because it might be, I mean, in this US economy with the way jobs are, baby, that it might be that right now I have to keep this job. and the money's fine. The boss will explode like that, and I just have to deal with it. And then you have to just say to yourself, I just have to tolerate it right now. And how do I'm going to make mistakes. Frustrations are going to happen. He's going to yell. I know if I say something to him about it, he's going to yell even more. And at this moment, it is not worth it. Then you have that conversation with yourself and have the honesty. Because you have to have some honesty in that and some ownership in the decision you're making. And it sucks. I've been in that position before where I've worked for a horrible human of a boss. Horrible. The way he treated us, horrible. And I knew because of the contract I signed that if I left after a year, I would have to pay back the $20,000 of movie expenses.
Wow.
I knew that. And I had to make a decision. And sometimes people don't want to admit that they are making the decision to stay or go.
Yeah.
Right? And talking through the circumstances of it. In this time, my boss is a complete and utter jerk. And I have to stay because it's close to my kid's school because of these. And there's some points, there's sometimes nothing you can do when you know the deal you have to deal with, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just the reality of the situation is your boss. And if your boss, I know if I say these things to him about how he speaks, he's going to yell, scream, blah, blah, blah. I don't, and this is the hard and ugly part about conflict. You can stay calm. You can tell them, I cannot continue this conversation if you're going to talk to me that way. And unfortunately, you know the repercussions of that statement.
Well, I think it's fair to say you might think you know the repercussions of that statement. So I'll share an example actually this is from my work life long time ago, probably my first or second job, long time ago.
Yeah.
But I actually was seconded to a different group. So there was a different dynamic there. I didn't report into the boss. I was seconded in there. So my boss was somewhere else, but I still reported to this guy, and he was a real jerk. He was behaving like a jerk, at least in certain situations. And he would shout at some of the other people on the desk and shout and so on. And one time he shouted at me, and I'm sitting there thinking, nah. So I had a conversation with him, and I can't even remember what I said, but I basically said something like, I don't give a crap, or something like that. And he was like, how can you speak to me like that? And I said, look, mate, I'm just joking. I deliberately said that just to say to you just said to me something inappropriate. You need to respond differently. And he was like, whoa. He didn't actually use these words, but his response was, wow, nobody's ever called me up on that. Nobody's ever challenged me on that. Maybe I do need to be speaking differently. Now, I had the courage to do that because, as I said to you earlier, ultimately he wasn't my boss. And so I know he didn't have the power to
that's a completely different scenario.
What I get that. I get it's different. But what I'm saying is I thought that he might have responded differently. I thought that he might have come back and escalated and so on. But actually, because I challenged him, he was like, whoa, actually, maybe I shouldn't have been speaking to you like that. And I only challenged him because I felt the power imbalance wasn't because I worked for him. Yeah. But at least
I
felt safer to challenge him and saying maybe sometimes maybe there's a risk there, but maybe if we do take those, if we do step up and challenge people sometimes, maybe they may not respond in the way we think. We think they're going to fly off the handle and so on. Actually, they might take it on the chin and go, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have been behaving like that.
Well, so the pushback I would have is he wasn't responsible for your paycheck.
Yeah. Correct. Agreed. So that's why I had the challenge.
So that's why you were able to challenge him. Yeah, you had the courage because he wasn't responsible for your paycheck. Yeah. When they're responsible for your paycheck, it's a very different aspect.
Yeah.
And to me, so when I left coaching, I decided to make the jump into full entrepreneur. It was me by myself. I don't have kids. I own a cat. I have houses, but I don't have people to caretake. So when I say that, when people ask me about making the jump into full-time entrepreneurship, I will never give them the advice to do it because I don't know their living situation. I would never say, just quit. Absolutely not. And the reason I say that is I'm not going to tell someone to challenge their boss who they know and use the experience of me challenging someone that wasn't my boss because that's unfair to them. That's
Totally.
not a direct correlation.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like when you go into a different space, also, you don't know of you not being his employee, maybe is the reason why he took the challenge.
Yeah.
Versus had you been his employee, he might not have taken that challenge.
Yeah.
He might have
Indeed.
taken it as a challenge and been like, you're not going to work for me anymore. And
Yeah,
that's what I'm
you're out.
saying. The nuance is really critical. If I'm in a space where there's no power dynamic, I'm going to be much more open to having the conversation versus if the power dynamic is there. Much
Yeah.
more open.
Yeah. But I love
That's
what
right.
you said earlier about owning the decision, just staring
Yeah.
it in the face and being aware that you're not there just as a helpless victim. You've actually taken a decision because right now it's prudent to put up with that so that you don't lose the
Yeah.
bigger prize. And that's empowering in its sense, in itself. And I guess you can think about what you will do, what you will say to yourself, how you will respond in the moment when they start exploding, because you have no control over that, just to make it more tolerable if
Yeah.
that's what you need to do.
It might be that you're just sitting there letting him rant and rave and you're thinking about the vacation you're about to go on.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
it might be you just take it, you learn how to disassociate and then keep it moving. Like you learn to cope with it. And and yes, it's a sucky thing to say. And yes, it's a horrible thing to be a part of. I get all of that, but that's also the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
If you're in a job here and you're making 250,000 and you know you're going to keep this job and your boss is a raving lunatic, you might just be like, I just got to take this.
Yeah.
Because right now I have friends who are sending out hundreds of job applications a week. So you might have to take it because you know how he'll respond. And that's the thing about doing this work, is that there's a reality to it.
Mhm.
You can't sit here and theorize everything. Well, just have a calm conversation and tell him how it made you feel and that you won't tolerate it again. And some people have been doing it for so long that you say they don't know anything else to do. Like, I think that's the thing we have to understand is you're talking to someone who more than likely has been doing this for years, for decades. And now you're telling them to stop doing it when they literally don't know what to replace it with. So
Yeah.
you're telling me to stop yelling like a lunatic. I don't know how to get my point across without using emotion, without using anger. I've never been taught. I've never been treated that way. I've never had a boss that way. My parents don't do it that way. I know nothing of doing it in this way you're telling me to do it at a hard moment, but you're expecting me to do different. Like, we can't expect that.
How do you do that? Yeah.
We can't, and that's the thing.
But from the person on the receiving end of the bad behavior, should we say, what are the boundaries, or where's the backbone in how you respond? I'm just trying to tie it back to the language that you used of how to have backbone and boundaries without being a jerk. For the person on the receiving end, what can they do?
The backbone literally might be
Apart
that
from
they
suck it
just
up,
learn.
just take it and say, well, listen, they're behaving badly. I'm just going to have to put up with it.
And sometimes, I mean, I think about the boss I had. That was kind of my only opportunity, the only thing I could do at that point. Like, this is a messy, ugly thing that we're doing when we talk about conflict.
Yeah.
I can tell them that they can say, I'm not going to be talked to this way and walk away. And they're going to have to deal with the repercussions of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can go over that boss's head and talk to that boss. And there will be repercussions of that. They can go to HR and there might be repercussions. Like, they can do all of these things. And those are all options. And we have to acknowledge that there might be repercussions of it.
Yeah.
Like, we have to have an honesty of it.
Yeah.
I can't tell them, here are the things to do, right? I can tell them, go above his head to his boss. Go to HR and file a formal complaint. Go, right? Tell them that you will not be talked to. Like, you can do all of those things. Those are all options. And we have to acknowledge that there can be repercussions to it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the office, the startup they work in doesn't have an HR department. Guess what? Your boss is HR.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Now what?
Now what?
Right? Like, these are all true things.
Yeah, that's one scenario. And another common one, especially in the financial services world, is the one who's being a jerk is the one who's bringing in the most money. So
Yes.
HR doesn't want to talk to them and the boss doesn't want to talk to them because that's
No.
the golden
Yeah.
goose. So how do you navigate? Yeah, you're right. It's all real life stuff.
And also let's add in, everyone knows this guy's a jerk.
Yeah.
And if you take it to the boss and open up Pandora's box, he might fire you for opening up Pandora's box. Because I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that Jen treats people horribly, and now you go to Jen's boss, and now it's documented. It's an email. You might get fired because now you're forcing him to act on something he doesn't want to act on. Because he knows if he acts on it, the golden goose might be gone. These are all real things that happen.
Yeah, yeah. So how do we then, what's your thoughts on, in a quiet moment, after the blow up or whatever, going to the person and saying, I'm sure this isn't what you mean, but when you speak like that or when you shout like that, it impacts me in a certain way. What are your thoughts on, after the tension, going and having a conversation with them?
I think anything is possible. Just know that there can be repercussions.
Right.
I think that all of these are valid things to do, and to understand that potentially with the type of person you're dealing with who doesn't know emotional regulation, do they have the self-reflection to understand the impact on people and change the behavior in the moment when they've never been taught to? Because we want to be logical and rational with people who are not logical or not rational.
That's a really powerful question. Yeah? Do they have the self-reflection to understand the impact they're having and to even know what to do next if they've never been taught? Yeah.
But it's exactly in that same vein. So the conflict has happened. So let's assume that they don't have the emotional self-regulation to understand what they're doing, how they're coming across. But the conflict situation has happened now. What do we do with that? Do we just avoid it? Whatever we do is going to have or could have repercussions.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Do we just, how do you advise people to, conflict has happened, now what?
So I think it depends on their living situation. We have to think about that. You are making $250. You are the caretaker of your kids and your grandparents. You have to have real life thoughts about that. So what I tell is document every aspect of every interaction. Have all the documentation. You have what was said, how it was said, who was in the room, what it was about, behaviors. You document everything. You should have a folder of documentation. And you should be sending all of that to your personal email, never your public, your professional. Everything should be going to your personal email. You document everything. If there's any fiery stuff in email, you document it and you forward it to your personal. If you are in a industry where the computers can tell that you forward stuff, take pictures with your phone. Make sure you have all of the documentation. And so sometimes it's, how do you navigate with these constraints around you and still do your job?
Yeah.
And I would tell people, baby, do the bare minimum of your job. Just enough to don't get fired, that you're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. Because sometimes you're in situations where I can give you every theory and advice and it's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
Especially when and that's the really hard part. I'll never forget, I did a talk somewhere, and afterwards someone comes up and is saying all the things that their boss is doing, and I'm giving them things to do, and they're like, we've done that, now what? And it was such a helpless feeling for me, because these real life situations, sometimes the only thing you can do is leave, but it's the only thing you can't do. And how do we try and keep people healthy? How do we tell them to get a therapist, to maintain relationships, to not bleed on their families, that type of stuff? Because the problem is knowing you're in this situation, you can't leave. it tends to create feelings, emotions where they just bleed all over their partner. And their partner now is the person that gets it all.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've seen that as well.
Yeah, that is so true. But the wisdom, the nuggets that you're sharing there, it's about owning that you have made a decision and why you made the decision, and that it's more important to stay than to leave. Stay and deal with it. And also recognizing that you have no control over the other person. You can't change the other person. They will have to want to change. I think that would help to disassociate in the moment from how they're behaving and what you feel like you should be able to control. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I mean, in the moment, the only thing you can control is yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And I know what was mentioned about the other person you're working with and saying, hey, like, you can't talk to me like that. What tends to happen in those situations, honestly, is they learn that they can't talk to you that way, but they can still talk to other people that way.
Other people that way. Yeah.
Right. Like I just want to talk to you, but other people are going to get it because I have control over them.
Yeah.
And so they know that.
Mm.
And so that's the problem with it, is that people just, like, that's why this is a skill to develop. How do you handle the worst things possible and still be emotionally regulated?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard. And when people aren't taught it, you're asking me to change something that I've never learned a skill to do. That's really hard.
Mm.
We're both ready to ask a question there.
But I'm also conscious of the time. There's loads more we could ask, but we're kind of up against it.
I know. I just want to go one direction into the sports world.
Yeah.
How does this apply in the sports world where there is a lot of passion and emotion and testosterone and things, the heady cocktail is even bigger on the sports
Fame and
field.
fortune kind of thing.
Fame, fortune,
Yeah.
but the excitement and the heightened emotions of the game that you're playing and all that stuff. How do you coach people through conflict in that scenario?
Well, I think the first thing is that, you see in the universities here is like a coach is really fiery and jumping around, and their players are having to calm them down. And I think that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be using like a 19-year-old to calm you down. And so I think the problem is what's become acceptable because of that heady cocktail. And now when we talk about it kind of reminds me of like the old school, like the stock market floors, right? Of like everyone's screaming, yelling because there's money being made, lost, switch up and down, right? All of that. It's kind of the same thing now with this amount of money that's being made. Everything's more magnified. And I think the thing about it is, how do we still keep the people in power managing their emotions more? Because their players are good. The players are going to feed off of that. And that was one thing, when I was a young coach, I would be up, down, left, right, screaming, all of that. And they play off of that. And so then as I got older, I became a more emotionally regulated coach, that they have to figure out and manage their emotions. I can't be the one, I can't be jumping up when everything's good, mad when everything's bad. I have to be more emotionally regulated so that they learn how to have more control over their emotions.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's what you model, isn't it? Because quite often they learn how to deal with it based on what they see.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. One thing I didn't share is the example I did share back then was exactly that. It was on the trading floor in an investment bank. So it's exactly that kind of environment where there's a lot of, it's just normalized. The bad behavior, the cursing, all that kind of stuff. I hope that this is a long time ago. I hope that's changed now, but it certainly was back then. It was just normalized. And thankfully I was in a position where I didn't have to put up with it, but it's very normal there.
I knew this was going to be an amazing conversation and so many other things we could talk about. What principles or insights have we not discussed that you really wanted to share? 1, 2, 3 things that you want to leave people with when they're thinking about conflict and culture.
Being more conflict literate, I think, is how you phrase it.
So there's a phrase I like to live by, and it says, conflict shows us the depth of our relationships. And the thing I would leave people with is that your relationships can't get deeper if you don't have conflict in them, and you learn how to navigate it. The best relationships I have are the ones that we've been through some shit. Like, we've been through some, and we've come out on the other side. We maybe have come out on the other side a year later, right? But we've come out. And I think about my best friend. For a year and a half, we didn't talk. And what changed it was my mom died, and she sent me a card. And she said, like, had I known when the funeral was, I would have sent flowers. And to me, that was a really, really big moment. That was a moment of, this is someone that I should still have in my life. And sometimes there needs to give like breathing room. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes you have to have breathing room to come back together. And we think that all conflict is going to be solved within a really quick time period and everyone moves on. And that's simply not true.
Yeah.
Right? It needs to have breathing room. And now I hold that relationship so much tighter because of what we've been through.
Yeah.
As
And
you say,
so,
conflict done.
what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, conflict done right can absolutely make the relationship stronger.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so for me, I look at, as I've gotten older, I have much more thought about reconciliation and having those conversations. I won't ignore a phone call. I won't, like, those type of things. I'll have it. And a part of the conversation is we have to talk about what happened.
Yeah.
I will not engage a friendship again if we don't talk about what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't just blanket it and hope it'll go away, but have the conversation.
Yeah, we like to talk about recognizing when you've taken emotional shrapnel. You've created some damage. Go there, deal with it, apologize for it, acknowledge it.
I love that phrase. I'm going to have to borrow that you've caused some emotional shrapnel, because that's so true, right? You have to acknowledge, like, that I've hurt your feelings, I've harmed. You have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, indeed.
Even if it was unintentional, but I've done something.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much. I mean, John always gets nervous when we have an author on the podcast because he knows I'm going to be buying another book
coming through the door.
Yes.
And if people wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
Yeah, Jen Fry Talks on every single medium possible. If you just type Jen Fry Talks in, you'll be able to find me on social media. My email is info@jenfrytalks.com. Like, anything Jen Fry Talks. My website is jenfrytalks.com. I tried to make it as super easy as possible. So anything, Jen Fry Talks.
And the book is available out there, I'm guessing, on Amazon and so on?
Yes, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you want a signed copy, you go on my website under Jen's book, and you'll get a signed copy for $20 US, and it comes with stickers and a bookmark.
Amazing.
Not bad.
Dr. Jen Fry, it's been awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you do, because if ever we need to get better at doing conflict and having more hard, honest conversations, but still reconciling and rebuilding relationships, that's what we need to learn to do now. So thank you. Keep going strong in that work.
I appreciate you, friends. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, to the audience around the world, we say thanks for being with us yet again. I'm sure you found this conversation to be a fascinating one. Conflict is a topic out there on lots of people's minds. Let us know what else you want to be having insights into. We'll see who else we can get in the hot seat to come and share their insights. But thanks for being with us yet again. Till the next time,
it's a wrap. It's a wrap.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the 4 Habits podcast. Now, if today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget, take our free relationship skills quiz at the4habits.com/skills quiz to start improving your relationships today. Hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time.